Some fun ways to get kids involved in gardening coming up right after this. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome to the show. Now, today's show is about getting kids involved in gardening. That is one of the most important missions I have. I think a kid can learn so much from getting out and getting their hands in the soil. And in today's society, well, they spend a lot of time in front of TVs, computer monitors, and video games. So in today's show, we're going to talk about a few ideas that might get their hands out there in the soil and explore nature just a bit. We're also going to visit a friend of mine who's involved with FFA and encourages kids to give it a try. We're also going to get into a few simple projects involving ordinary things such as carrots and seeds, all of which kids will have a blast making. I've got a vegetable recipe that you'll have no trouble getting kids to eat. So coming up, we'll meet at the FFA Convention Center, so stay tuned. Roger Phelps of STIHL Power Equipment has been a friend of mine for a long time, and he's always had a passion for FFA. In fact, he's been to their convention for many years. While we were there, we discussed just how much this convention has grown and why it's so important to get kids involved in the outdoors.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
What do you say, Roger?
Hey, Alan, how are you?
Good. Isn't this a happening?
Oh, can you believe this?
It is so fantastic. Yeah. How did you get interested in FFA, Roger?
When I went to work for STIHL, we were introduced to the FFA through our friends at Dodge, and they told us about the Future Farmers Association, and we came down here to one of their conventions, and really it was less about agriculture for me than the energy of the young people. These are young people that have a vision, they know where they're going, they've got a plan for the future, they're studying things like agriculture, horticulture, farm operations, sales. So for us, that was just so exciting.
Now, the organization has really changed over the years. The demographic is very different, and the opportunities for these kids, it's much broader, isn't it?
Where it was a primarily agriculture-focused or farm-focused, I mean, now we're getting more into the agri-science, agribusiness, and where it probably was primarily male in former times, it is a really even split now. In the last couple of years, many of the top finishers were women.
Now, coming to this convention and seeing the diversity of careers that these students can tap into is hugely inspiring.
I mean, we've got everything from engine operations to speaking, to extemporaneous speaking, to sales, obviously the nursery and landscaping operations, which is what we're involved in, horticulture, you name it. There's such a broad variety, and I think it's good, though. They're keeping up with the entire realm of agri-science, and I mean, these kids are learning stuff that I don't think I learned when I was in school.
Well, it's so important for one generation to pass on knowledge to the next generation. And to me, that's what's so inspiring.
That the young people here are not ones that turn away that information. They look up to the people who are giving them that knowledge, and they embrace it beyond anything else. It's the passion, it's the excitement, it's the energy that these young people have that really makes this kind of the high point of my year.
Okay, now after the break, we'll get started on that fun project when we let the kids get their hands in the soil and grow something. It's fun to get kids involved in projects, and I think getting them involved in projects that helps them understand nature is very important. Now, this project is very simple. After you have prepared your meal or thought about it, and you have carrots around, just take the tops of the carrots. You see I've just cut these off with just a little bit of the root still left. And what I do is just take some sand and put it in a vessel like this. It's so simple. Spread it around. Place the carrots about halfway into the sand, like this. Cover them up slightly. And then all the child has to do is add water. Whoops, there we go. You want to just keep the sand moist And what will happen is the carrot will begin to develop roots, and it will begin to show some fern-like foliage, as you can see over here. These have already started with a little bit. I'm going to add some more water to them here. It's just a fun way for them to watch every day this vegetable emerge in the house. Maybe it's at the dining table where they can talk about it at each meal. Now, another thing you can do is take one of these little greenhouses, and they're very affordable, and what you get are these little peat moss wafers, and by adding a bit of water, they puff up like this, and a child can place a seed in each one of these, and you just keep it moist, and the seedlings come up, and then you can plant them in the garden. It's a lot of fun to watch. And what I recommend, if you're just getting started, is to have a child grow radishes. They're so simple to grow. You can direct sow them in the ground once the danger of frost has passed. And what's amazing about a radish is that it will germinate in 4 to 7 days. So if you have a youngster who is a little short on patience, radishes, well, they're a good choice. And then finally, if you have a cat, and you all know my cat Marge, and she loves this, you can get a kit like this and grow cat grass, so the child can actually grow something that their kitty cat will enjoy. So as you can see, there's lots of different ways to get kids involved in gardening early on in the house, and then when temperatures warm up, right out into the garden. Okay, now let's shift from seeds to bulbs. Let's head out to the farm. I want to show you a little project that a group of kids help me with each year to beautify the farm and raise money for special causes. You know, I just can't tell you how much pleasure I've derived in sharing all of these daffodils this spring. You know, Daffodil Hill is really coming along quite beautifully. But you know, these daffodils just don't show up on their own. I've had a lot of help getting these in the ground. As a matter of fact, last fall, I had the Episcopal Middle School out here, and they were such a big help in getting so many of these daffodils planted. You see, it was in the late fall, around 1st of November, and we planted, I don't know, that day, probably 4,000 or 5,000 bulbs. They planted them with trowels. But you see, first we worked the ground up. We used a turning plow, turned the soil, and then we tilled it. That made it soft and easy for them to dig in. And then they took the trowels and buried the bulbs. See, the bulbs were planted about 10 inches apart and about 8 inches deep. And by spring, you could begin to see the daffodils emerging. And now, well, they're just about at peak, and they've absolutely been glorious. You see, we have about 76 varieties of daffodils out here on Daffodil Hill. And what's wonderful about a blend like this is that you get plenty of early, mid, and late season bloomers. So what I get is almost a month and a half of daffodil bloom here. Now, the reason I chose daffodils is that they're so reliably perennial here in my Zone 8 garden. You see, what's important for me is for these things to come back year after year. And in order for that to happen, there are a few things I keep in mind. One is I make sure they're planted in full sun, and I don't cut the foliage back. I just let it die back naturally. And by doing that, I ensure that these bulbs will return year after year. So you may ask, Alan, why don't you plant tulips out here with the same amount of passion? Well, you see, tulips in this zone aren't reliably perennial. They're not going to come back year after year because it gets so warm so early in the season, the foliage burns back and it doesn't have enough time to reinvigorate that bulb so we can be guaranteed a bloom for next year. Unlike the daffodils, they'll keep coming on year after year. Now, after the break, we're going to visit one of the largest plant farms in the country, so stay tuned. Now, this is a Coleus hybrid that can take full sun. It's called ColorBlaze Sedona, and it's named after the Sedona Mountains. Now, what I love about it is its rust, orange-colored leaves. And if you look on the underside of the leaf, it's actually purple. They have a slight fragrance to them, which I believe makes them deer resistant. I found that the blue-purple flowers that it produces in late summer really make it an attractive combination for lots of other plants in the garden, whether they're in containers or in the bed. Getting all the little holes punctured in there?
Yes, sir.
Good, that's great. I'm here with my friend Mattie, and we're making a very easy vegetarian pizza made with fresh vegetables. So let me show you what we're up to. So we've just taken some Crescent Rolls, and Mattie's rolled them out, and she's pushing little holes in them so they'll won't puff up in the oven. And I'm going to pop these in. You about ready for them to go in?
Uh-huh.
All right, great. This is what it looks like when it comes out. after it's been in the oven for about 425 for about 15 minutes. Now, what we're going to do is, you have this mixed up yet?
I gotta mix it up a little.
Okay, good. So this is all 8 ounces of the cream cheese?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, now we're ready for our 16 ounces of sour cream. You want to fold that in? Very good. And then we're going to add some ingredients to give it a little flavor. Is that a teaspoon of dill, dried dill, or is it a tablespoon?
Tablespoon.
We grow the dill in the garden. It's so beautiful. The caterpillars love it. Okay, now what's next? We have some garlic salt. I think, what is that, about 1/4 of a teaspoon?
Yes.
Not much, but just to give it a little bit of boost. There you go. We have a 1 ounce pack of ranch dressing. Let's go ahead and pour that in. And then what you do is just simply spread this, once it's all blended together, onto the pizza crust. And Mattie's going to add some of her favorite vegetables. Now these are vegetables that you chose, right?
Yes.
Now once you start spreading your vegetables across there.
We have some red peppers. The peppers are like really crunchy. Some chopped up onions.
This is 1 small white onion. It's kind of a sweet onion. It doesn't burn.
Radishes. We have some celery.
What's great about this is the baking's already done. You can pile as many vegetables on here as you like. Here, we're going to top it off with a broccoli, and then with a final little touch maybe of some carrot. Gosh, it looks like a garden, doesn't it?
I know. Put a few more peppers on there.
Let's use them up.
Yeah.
These are all easy to grow vegetables. And then I'm going to take some of my carrots I've been working on. If it's all right, I'm just going to sprinkle some of these on top.
Yeah.
And look at what we have. We have a vegetable pizza.
Yes.
Bon appetit.
Yes.
So as you can see, the kitchen is also another great place to get kids involved in gardening and recognizing where their food comes from. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Anything in the show that you'd like to check out, just go to my website, pallensmith.com. From the garden, I'm Alan Smith.
In this garden I dream of a bed of flowers. Bluebirds sing of the beauty all around us. And every time the sun comes out, I can't help but smile. Oh, no, I can't help but smile.